Week 1 of the preseason is already in the books, and the 2023 draft class is already doomed. Let's overreact and let's data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive, powered by Market Movers. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and week 1 of the preseason is in the books. Technically, as of recording this video, that's all that's in the books. By the time you're seeing this, some week 2 games will also have been played. But since football cards were by far the hottest cards at the National, I figured I better dive in and overreact a little bit since it's that season. Now, as always, this video is brought to you by Market Movers. Check out our brand new sales history tool for sales comps for any card from eBay, Golden, PWCC, and soon to be many more marketplaces. Visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE when you check out. That will get you 14 days completely free to try out Market Movers and then 20% off for life as long as you're subscribed. Now, are you ready for some football? Let's get into the data. All right, so I'm over on CBSSports.com. Thank you, CBS, for actually having preseason stat data available. It seems like it's always difficult on some of the major websites to find that information. And I'm looking at qualified leaders from week 1 for passing stats sorted by passer rating. And boy, is this funny just to look at. It's like a blast from the past of all of the quarterbacks who have at some point had an incredible amount of hype, undue hype around their name, guys who were sort of like later draft picks. When I'm scrolling down, we've got Matt Barkley. Remember him? I am not a USC fan since I am a Notre Dame fan, so not particularly a fan historically of Matt Barkley, but he did tear it up going 14 of 15 with a 93% completion rate and 2 touchdowns in that opening week for Buffalo. Obviously, Josh Allen's job not in jeopardy anytime soon, but Buffalo's at least got to feel well that they've got a backup who can apparently go out and play at least against scrubs in week 1. And then we've got Trey Lance, we've got Nick Mullins, Drew Lock, remember him, Case Keenum. We've got David Blau for a minute, had some hype behind him. Same with Wolford when he was back on the Rams. Will Grier, anybody? Will Grier. Easton Stick, Bailey Zappi, Kellen Mond. These are all the guys who, where's Mason Rudolph when you need him on this list? These are all the guys who had these flash in the pan moments where people went crazy for their cards in the past for a quick second. Some people still very high on Bailey Zappi. Who knows? Maybe he will actually beat out Mac Jones for the list. So I wanted to show this just because I thought that was kind of funny when I was doing the research, seeing some of these names, these people. It's like, is it time to overreact? Are people going to get crazy about preseason stats and go buy some of these cards on speculation? Probably. Now, the players that we're most interested in, because we've got new products coming out and the new draft class is always the shiny new object, are the key quarterbacks from the 2023 NFL draft. And I've got 6 names here in particular, starting with the first overall draft pick, Bryce Young, as well as C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, who did not play at all because he's recovering from injury, and Stetson Bennett, 79-year-old Stetson Bennett, who hopes to get some time in the NFL. So Bryce Young, limited snaps, 4 for 6. He didn't really get a chance to do anything. I think he got hit on every single drop back. He was showing poise, composure in the pocket, but if you remember, the big kind of scare around Bryce Young, it's not his field vision, it's not his arm strength or his arm accuracy or his ability to move or any of those things. It's simply the fact that he is smaller and the line for the Panthers not exceptionally great. So if he's going to get pummeled all the time, people are worried about the injury concerns with Bryce Young. So it remains to be seen. Passer rating 72.2. Obviously just nothing much to write home about. C.J. Stroud, again, limited attempts, 2 for 4 with an interception. Not a great showing. Not a great showing if you're a Texans fan. Not a great showing if you're an Ohio State fan. Not a great showing if you're a C.J. Stroud fan. Anthony Richardson didn't look good. I know Colts fans are super optimistic about him. If you've listened to Jeff, even though Anthony Richardson is a Gator, Jeff not very optimistic about him in particular, had some concerns with his ability to make basic throws, passes on out routes and slants and other things. It remains to be seen. He's obviously got a cannon. He's mobile, but can he actually make smart decisions? Well, in this game, he was 7 for 12, 67 yards with an interception, and he had a couple of really bad passes if you got a chance to see that. Will Levis, 9 of 14, not a bad completion percentage, 85 yards, but also with an interception. And then Stetson Bennett lighting the world on fire, 17 for 29 with 191 yards and a touchdown, no picks. So limited sample size here. I wouldn't say that any of the key guys that everybody's excited about showed any flashes of anything. It was announced already that Anthony Richardson will be the week 1 starter for the Colts, barring any injury between now and then. It'll be interesting to see how much more he plays in the preseason. I would think they would want to get him more reps and more snaps, get him comfortable, but he's the week 1 starter. So what should we be doing with these guys? They'll have cards coming out. You've got, Score already out this year, and then you'll have other products, releasing soon enough for these players. Well, I want to remind you of something really important. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but this chart is a guy named Mac Jones, who I've done videos on in the past. And if you remember this absurdity, this was the first PSA 10 sale, actually the first 2 sales that averaged out to $2,500 for a base paper Donruss PSA 10 Mac Jones card. Pretty incredible. Obviously, those may or may not have been real. Here's another couple sales that averaged to 1.8K, 1.5K. And this card just went down, down, down very quickly, very, very quickly. And most recently, this card has sold for, drumroll, $32.50. This is perhaps the most extreme example in existence for any player ever to have a card come out, be ridiculously overvalued, and then come down in value and probably settle into somewhere where it should be. Now, if Mac Jones doesn't play this year, Bailey Zappi takes over, this card could become a $2 card. It could actually go down to nearly zero, depending on what happens with Mac Jones and his ability to play and play well for the Patriots. So that's an extreme example. Let's look at another one, Trevor Lawrence. Here's a guy who is playing well, who's trying to ease his way into maybe the top 5 conversation for quarterbacks in the NFL. Some people already put him there. I think that's way too premature. But here's several of his cards, or a handful of his cards: his Prism Silver Raw, his Donruss Base Paper Raw, and his Donruss PSA 10 Raw. And all of these cards, you can see them on the price change. So this is putting these things apples to apples against each other. All of them come out high, and then all of them go down, 70, 80, 90% in value before they settle into this price range. So the moral of the story here is, even if you're high on any of these guys, this current crop of prospects, quarterback prospects, don't buy their cards on the secondary market on eBay right when they come out. If you have them and you're ripping them from sealed wax, probably sell them if you can get them out quickly or get them to PSA quickly. But that curve comes down so quickly that a lot of people may sort of miss out anyway. It's really hard to be the first one to sell a copy of these cards when so many people are trying to take advantage of that. Don't be the buyer on the wrong end of that, because you will almost certainly lose money. Now, what I've done here, one kind of big thought as we're looking at this current draft class, because last year, obviously, we didn't have the quarterbacks. We have Kenny Pickett, and we had some other, Brock Purdy obviously emerged, and we had Malik Willis. But that wasn't a draft class that was high on quarterbacks like most years are, like this year is. I'm asking myself this question. If you're looking at these current guys, if you like to speculate and prospect, where are these current quarterbacks going to fit in within the context of the rest of the NFL, of other players? And I would, want to see these guys getting into that top 10 conversation in quarterbacks within a year or two, honestly, if I was going to put any money into them now. You see with Trevor Lawrence cards, many of them have actually gone up since his early prices when a lot of these cards released, barring those early anomalous sales that happened right away out of the gate. That's because he's playing well. They got rid of Urban Meyer. Now Trevor Lawrence suddenly, can play extremely well. They get him some weapons, and he's looking really good. But if guys don't play well, it's going to be the hype period of their prices now, and then just a huge crash, much like we've seen with Mac Jones and other players. Mitch Trubisky, some of these other guys come to mind. So I put all these guys into a filter for you, and we can hide that. And I just want to talk through my thoughts on some of these guys. I had to laugh at this. We actually only have a few Will Grier cards in our featured card database, but everybody knows the running punchline joke about Will Grier. It's funny to see him at the top of this list, up over the last 180 days, the most of any player, albeit again on very limited transactions, up 41.1%. So I had to throw him in there, especially since he did play well for the Cowboys in that preseason game. Then we've got Sam Darnold. I'm just going to give you my commentary on these guys because there's several of them, and then you think about the current crop. Sam Darnold, he was hyped. He's the perfect example. He is the poster child of all these guys. I would say even more than Baker Mayfield, because Mayfield had a good rookie season. Sam Darnold is the poster child from that 2018 class. right when cards started getting hot, started getting really popular again. That class was popular, and everybody was like, yeah, Sam Darnold, another USC guy, by the way. And he was with the Jets, and the Jets stink, and the Jets can't get a quarterback who can play well. We saw that with Zach Wilson, and now Darnold's sort of like drifting from team to team, and some people still apparently believe in him. I get that he's in a better situation with the 49ers, but in my opinion, it's not enough. He's got competition with Trey Lance and obviously Brock Purdy, so I don't really know why anybody would be buying Sam Darnold cards right now. Personally, even if he does start, he is not going to be a top 10, definitely not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Steer clear. Jared Goff, finally getting some love. Lions have tons of hype around them. Man, do I hope, personally, obviously a Lions fan, that they actually do live up to the hype and expectations this year. But Jared Goff did play well last year, and he's had a pretty decent career so far. Trevor Lawrence, I already talked about. He obviously can play football. I talked about him last year and said that from that draft class, I was still highest on him. So far, that's proved to be right based on how he played last season. We'll see what he can do this year. Is there a person on earth who's not rooting for Tua just to play well because of the injuries? I mean, obviously, if you don't like the Dolphins, then you're probably not. Or if you really don't like Alabama, then you're probably not. But in general, it's just been such a bad situation with those injuries. So unfortunate. Nobody likes to root for injuries to end a guy's career. And he does seem one big hit or concussion away from that potentially happening. I hope that's not true. They obviously were very exciting with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle down there last year before he got injured. So people are back speculating on him. Justin Fields, is he going to be the next Lamar Jackson? Or is he just going to be the next guy running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to escape and get the ball to people while he can't actually deliver? That remains to be seen. Speaking of Lamar, he's next on the list. I've said this for a few years now, so maybe I'm just like a broken record at this point. I feel like Lamar needs to have another return to form MVP caliber season. The Ravens need to compete. Otherwise, his prices, I think, are just going to continue to go down. Even though he's been really good, he's not creating any separation from the rest of the pack. He's sort of falling out of that top 5 conversation for a lot of people in the league. And when that happens, the money is just going to go down. People are not going to be buying the cards anymore, except for collectors, except for authentic fans of Lamar. So that speculation money will disappear and go into other players, and his prices will continue to go down. Deshaun Watson, I didn't see anything last year from Deshaun Watson that showed me he can still actually play football. That situation, that way that whole thing played out, obviously really, really terrible. The Browns basically paid all this money and traded away every piece and pick and everything that they had for the rest of the future of their organization to get him. And they're putting all their eggs in one basket, hoping that he can actually play because they've got a heck of a running back. They've got some other weapons. They need him to show up. I wouldn't be putting any money into Deshaun Watson personally. Not going to keep going on Jalen Hurts because if you watch my other videos, of all these guys, I think he's got the most upside and he's shown that he can play at the highest, absolute highest level. Baker Mayfield, he's washed. I don't want to even think about Baker Mayfield, sorry. Seems like a funny guy. I hope he gets into acting. Drew Lock, stay away. Joe Burrow, known commodity. Daniel Jones got overpaid by the Giants, and I don't actually think is a particularly good quarterback. He might be a middle-of-the-road type of guy. Herbert, a lot of people have said is very overrated. I think he's actually very firmly in the top 5 list of quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a really good quarterback. He's in a really tough division, in a really tough conference, in a really hard situation with a franchise that hasn't been able to win anything. Talk to Phillip Rivers. So it'll remain to be seen what happens with Justin Herbert long term. He might just be this generation's Phillip Rivers for a lot of different reasons. Dak, man, the Cowboys are just going to cowboy. Every year, it's like they've got this loaded roster. They've got a great defense, maybe the best defense in the league this year. He's got weapons. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He's got these guys. Can he actually do anything with it? Tony Pollard was huge last year, hence getting rid of Ezekiel Elliott. So he's kind of coming up on that point where that curve, that life cycle happens, where people are just going to go, he's a good quarterback. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Similar story to Lamar. He's got to put up big numbers this year, MVP caliber numbers. Otherwise, Dak's going to be kind of a forgotten name for the foreseeable future. Zach Wilson, I threw him on here. Obviously, he's now backing up Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Rodgers is going to be able to do much with the Jets, but maybe I'll be wrong about that. Jordan Love's an interesting one because I look at him and I'm like, I haven't seen anything from him either. I think the Packers don't have a lot of weapons. I've heard Jordan Love hasn't played particularly well in practice. There's some concerns around that. If Jordan Love does prove to even be a semi-good quarterback, man, look at that 2020 draft class, how crazy that is. Just to throw his name into the mix with the rest of those guys, most of whom we've talked about already, that would be incredible. Don't need to say anything about my guy Mahomes. Josh Allen, I think it's weird. He's sort of floating. People are still high on him, but they're sort of like holding their breath. Joe Burrow's made it to a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts has made it to a Super Bowl. Justin Herbert puts up all the stats and hasn't done anything. And then there's Mahomes. People are looking at Josh Allen saying, he's really, really, really good. Bills fans obviously love him. They've been this close a few times, to making it to the big game, but he hasn't done it yet, and I think that's what everybody's expecting now. It's sort of like Super Bowl championship or bust. Mac Jones may not even be playing. Trubisky's forgotten about. Kyler Murray, man, the Cardinals, they don't look like they're going to be good. I don't understand what their coach is doing. He was, pew, 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 if you've seen that clip. Super, super, super bizarre. Don't know what's going on there. I'm going to skip down a few of these guys. Let's talk about Desmond Ridder and Kyle Trask. Jeff's two favorite guys for different reasons. One a Gator, one a local Atlanta guy. Can't say I'm particularly high on either of them, but again, could be proven wrong. Josh Rosen I had to throw in here just because he was a high draft pick. What a soundbite for him to say, all these teams are going to regret it and I'm going to prove them wrong. Obviously, they do not regret it. Sam Howell, if you saw my other video about players that were high at the National, several people telling me they really believe in Sam Howell. Some Commanders fans saying that they love him. So we'll see what happens there. Lance, if you look at his stats in the box score, they don't look terrible. But man, he did not look good at all. And he had one touchdown, which really was an interception that got dropped by the defender and caught by an offensive player. Not great. And then you've got Zappi, Purdy, Pickett, who I'm not sold on, Willis, who I don't even know if ever we'll see play time again. He didn't look like he could throw a football last year. And that sort of rounds out the list. So come back to this original list to wrap it up. And these guys I'm looking at, I'm saying, where are they going to fall within the context of all those other names? I don't really know. I can't say I'm particularly optimistic about any of these guys. If I had to pick one, I would say it's Bryce Young. I saw the most from him in college. He has composure. He makes great reads, it seemed like. So he's got the potential. He's got to stay healthy. But I don't know that I'm particularly super enthusiastic about this 2023 draft class. I think people might just be looking at last year saying, well, it's better than no quarterbacks or only a couple last year. So from a sealed product excitement perspective, maybe that's true. But I'm not particularly getting hyped up yet before I see more from these guys. So that was a lot of talking, a lot of thoughts. What do you think? Is this draft class going to pay dividends or will it fall into obsolescence? Do you buy football cards right when they release? Do you poke fun at people who overpay on Instagram? Because I know some of you do. Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.